Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Also, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast to our Overflow channel, Packer Fan Total Access, so you don't miss out on any of our audio podcasts. Every one of them will be uploaded there, and also will be on Packernet throughout the regular week as well. So hopefully everybody's having an awesome morning here on February the 13th. Full disclosure, okay? Internet has been crazy over the last 3 months. We've been trying to work around it, this and that. I've got texts who are scheduled to come out. So if the stream goes down randomly throughout this live stream, just know that's what happened, and we'll just go ahead and end the show there rather than trying to patch it together. So what we're going to dive into today, Fox Sports makes a couple of predictions in free agency. All right. They predict the Packers are going to sign a defensive lineman. We'll talk about who that is, and we'll give our take on it, as well as some of the other top free agent defensive lineman as well that may be a better fit, or maybe, in the same ballpark, if you will, maybe even a little bit cheaper based on the market value. We'll also talk about their prediction on Quay Walker. Will he return to the Packers or not? We'll hit that. We're also going to get into the free agency cheat sheet. We've got a cheat sheet created for our top favorite free agents for positions of need for the Green Bay Packers. If we have time, we'll dive into it. And then we got Goody, a little Goody segment. We're going to talk about his recent draft success or lack thereof. We'll talk about how he's drafted here recently and kind of compare it to a few players on our board. Listen, if this dumb redneck can spot a few good prospects and we end up taking someone of the same position, there might be a little bit of a tweak that needs to take place, obviously. So I see the chat already filling in. If you guys would do that YouTube stuff for me, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We are not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. The channel's growing like crazy, so we greatly appreciate everybody jumping on board. If you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live stream events. We got Chad Inc. in the house. What's up, Chad? Good to see you in here, buddy. We got Boz in here. He says, hey, I'm 40-something too. Put me in, coach. Isn't it wild to think about, right? I'm 43. I could not imagine strapping it up and going and playing a National Football League game. And what's crazy about the guy we're going to talk about is he's a huge, massive human being. Like, I can only imagine how the joints feel, how the knees, the ankles, things like that. But, man, he's still doing it, and he's doing it at a high level. So let's waste no time and jump into it, Boz. So, obviously, the player that we're talking about here from Fox Sports that actually made this it says prediction, guys. This is them projecting into free agency, like, okay, what players would be a good fit? Where do we think they would go? That's why, to me, it's more or less breaking news that, hey, of all the players that are available in free agency, these are the guys that I think is the perfect fit for the Packers, probably the perfect price as well. The age is the only thing that could throw a wrench into the equation. But let's talk about our boy Calais Campbell. As Fox Sports predicts, Calais Campbell signs with the Packers. You go down, it was in an article. I want to give a shout out to Janice, who made me aware of the article. And like I said, there was 2 players that hit on this list that we'll dive into both of them. So Fox Sports predicts the Packers will sign defensive tackle Calais Campbell in free agency. I said, Packer fans, how would you feel about this signing? Got a bunch of responses. To me, it felt like, and you can't do a poll question in this form, but it felt like probably 85% of the fan base would be on board with this. I think the fan base is becoming tired. It's becoming an old excuse that, man, we're the youngest team in the league. Therefore, how much success can you actually expect down the stretch? To the best of my knowledge, the youngest team in the league has never won the Super Bowl. That still holds true. I know the Seattle Seahawks people will say, well, they were young. Yes, they were young. They were not the youngest. Okay. So all that does come into factor for sure. But here is the write-up that Fox Sports put in place for Calais Campbell. They had him listed at number 52. Now, I don't know if that was the 52nd ranked free agent to them, or if it was just 52 on their list of how well they felt about these players potentially signing with the teams mentioned. But Calais Campbell, 39 years old, is ageless now with 4 straight seasons of at least 5 sacks while playing for 4 different teams. He's a living legend with 119 career sacks and 6 Pro Bowls. Let me ask you guys this real quick. If our biggest problem is coming down the stretch and we cannot seal the deal. We can't get the job done. And I think we would all agree. We look up every year and go, damn, that was just a stupid mistake in the worst moment for that player, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's a young player. It's a young, inexperienced player. It's a player like, you can say, well, Keyshawn's not young. That's true. He's not young. He's not 30-something, but he's not young, right? However, Keyshawn was an undrafted free agent. Well, that doesn't make or break the player, Clayton. You talk about all the time, hey, play the best players. Completely agree. Okay, well, how much money are they spending on him? Because that really shows the true value of a player, at least their recent value, to be able to warrant an NFL GM to give them X amount of money. Make a $7 million. Last year, I think he was making $5 or $6 million against the cap. We can't expect a player at the cornerback position who was an undrafted free agent, kick returner, who was converted to a slot corner, who was then converted to an outside corner, who's making $6-7 million a year. We can't be upset when they don't make the plays down the stretch, right? We just can't do it. And again, what does Calais Campbell have to do with this? How many times have we find ourselves in a situation where it's like, man, we need somebody to just step up right now, and no one tends to do it, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's not that a player isn't physically good enough to do it, right? It may be that they didn't recognize a certain play from film study. It may be that they didn't recognize the potential snap count where they could get the best get off on the ball and be able to get into the backfield, right? It may be the fact that they've exuberated the majority of their energy on plays that maybe weren't as important, which you can ask all of the greats. Kevin Green said it. I remember Greg Lloyd said it with the Steelers. I want to say Julius Peppers said it once in an interview too, caught a little bit of scrutiny for it. What am I talking about? They say, yeah, one of the key things to being a good defensive lineman is knowing when to save a little energy and when to turn it loose on those really, really important moments. Like, okay, I recognize they're going to be attacking my gap here. I got to give it 110% effort here, right? Okay, this particular play, typically I'm just going to kind of set the edge and contain. Let's save a little energy here, right? Those things matter. When you get a veteran who can step up in those key moments and make sure, all right, it's go time right now. And it seems like the Packers, they tend to lean on, well, let's do a heavy rotation at the position. I don't hate that idea. But also, if you've got a player who has learned over the last however many years, 17 years, I believe he's been in the league. If you've got a player that has understood over the last 17 years of his playing career at the National Football League level that, hey, I know right here is when I need to amp it up. I know right here is when they need me the most. That's invaluable in my opinion, right? It goes on to say he made it to the Super Bowl as a rookie in 2008 with the Cardinals 17 years ago. And how cool would it be if he signed on with the top contender and found his way back, turning 40 before this season starts in September, ? He signed for $5.5 million last year. And if a 40-year-old defensive lineman can help make a case for a raise, Campbell can. Again, the prediction is to sign with the Packers. So am I saying he's going to come in here and be Reggie White? No. Am I saying he's going to come in here and be, I'm trying to think of another player, Ndamukong Suh in his prime. No, am I saying he's going to be Calais Campbell in his prime? Absolutely not. But if the problem is we keep making mistakes on the grandest stages, and then it's okay, well, are we drafting the wrong people? I don't think it's necessarily that. Okay, well, these players keep getting hurt. Well, that's the whole reason you went youthful, is to prevent injuries, right? Well, this is the perfect example of somebody like Calais Campbell who stays healthy, and he's 39 years old. Right? Now, could he get hurt this year? Anybody could get hurt any year. Anything freak can happen. But there's also a skill set, I think, to these veteran players that they understand how to play the game and play the game in a way that they can protect themselves and always be available. I'm not trying to dog Devontae White, but Devontae White has not learned that yet. He plays reckless. We see it. And we love that recklessness when he's breaking into the backfield and sacking the quarterback. We don't love the recklessness when he takes himself out of the run fit, i.e. his run fit grade, no matter who you look at. Everybody will tell you he's a good pass rusher. Very seldom do they go, oh, he's a dominant run stuffer, right? But also he plays reckless in the sense that he ends up getting hurt a lot too, right? So all those things come into factor, in my opinion. So let's move along now, talk about the calculated market value. How much is he going to be worth? Last year he signed for $5.5 million. They're saying his stock has probably increased this year. Spot Track has it at $10.9 million. Okay, that's their projected value. They compare him to players like Cam Jordan, Brandon Graham, Cam Hayward, and John Jenkins. All right, so you average all of that out, you essentially come up with a $10.9 million AAV, or average annual salary. Okay, so, or value, I should say, of the overall contract. So it doesn't mean if you sign him to a 2 or a 3 year deal that you're on the hook for the entirety of $30 million. It'll probably be a one-year deal if the Packers were to go get him. And again, I don't necessarily think Calais Campbell is my top choice. I'll talk about who my top choice is in just a second. But if you could get him at $10 million for 1 year, that seems a little steep to me. I would rather go in a different direction. But if you can get him at what PFF is projecting at $6 million per year, absolutely run it. You know, if he made 5.5 last year, maybe I feel like it'd be closer to the 5.5 mark than it would 10 mark. So you can get him for 6 or 7 million on a 1 year deal. I'm all about it. And for the people that say, well, is he going to be that much better? If he's this much better for anything less than $7 or $8 million, it's worth it. I mean, look at the PFF grades too. And notice the snaps too. 2023, 712 snaps at 80 PFF grade. Guys, in 2023, I was doing this podcast, and Calais Campbell was always popping up as a player like, should we go get him? Well, he's too old. He's too old. We said he was too old the last 3 years, and boy, oh boy, if we had him on our roster, do you understand? It's not even close. I repeat, it is not even close. He is grading out as our best interior defensive tackle. Now, maybe Calais Campbell shouldn't be the guy, but maybe we should throw that to the side thinking, oh, that player's too old, and sign one of these other guys as well. Again, we need help in the middle. We've already ran multiple mock drafts, and what we're coming up with is we've got prospects in our top 100 at defensive tackle at 21, 23, 31, 33, and 41. If those guys are gone, ending with Lee Hunter there at 41, if those guys are gone, the talent value drops all the way down to 91 and 99 with Darrell Jackson and Big Citrus. Okay, so what that means is at 52, you're not getting kind of the upper echelon defensive tackles in the draft, right? Probably not going to happen. It's too valuable. Isn't it amazing these other teams just keep swooping these guys up? They keep taking them, right? And we're just like, we'll settle for a fifth and an undrafted free agent. It's like, it's that important of a position. And I can't help but think they're clinging to Devontae Wyatt like this is the answer to all our problems at defensive tackle. Well, we've seen these guys get banged up. And when you're in your nickel set, it's not a bad thing to have 2-3 techs, right? They may be playing a 4-eye or a 5 tech, but they're the same type of build where they can push the pocket in an isolation situation, especially if you get them opposite of Micah Parsons. If you throw a second guy in there in the middle and they're looking at Calais Campbell going, boy, we got to double team him. Now you got Devontae Wyatt singled up once he's healthy. And on the other side, they've got to double Micah Parsons as well. You're just creating more problems from the inside out. And every quarterback will tell you, if they say, where would you rather the pressure come from? The A to B gap or off the edge? 99% of the time, the quarterbacks say, oh, off the edge. I can make them miss. But when they're pushing that pocket back and you got a solid contain on the outside, it causes a lot of problems for opposing teams. So again, 80, 82, 72. If we get that 72 out of a player like that, he's the 23rd highest rated defensive lineman last year, and we get 500 snaps out of him, I think it could help this defense tremendously. Now let's move along to players that we also like, okay? Now, I included DJ Reader, who's ranked by PFF as the 20th best free agent. In my opinion, I'm not as big on him, okay? His grade's 82, 66, 68. I don't think it'd be a horrible signing, but at 31 years old, you have not seen the last 2 years the level of play that Calais Campbell has, okay? Now, they've got him listed at $4.5 million. That's good value, right, to get a veteran player in here. However, I would prefer Calais Campbell over here. Over onto the next one. According to PFF, the 47th ranked free agent available is David Onyemata from the Atlanta Falcons, okay? His PFF grade starting in 2023, 84. Then he dropped to a 66. He jumped back up to a 78. He's 33 years old. So you're still getting that veteran mentality, 7 years younger than Calais Campbell. Guys, his projected market value, according to PFF, and again, Spot Track may have it a little bit different. I don't think they'll have it at the 10 million mark, nowhere near it. But David Onyemata, they're saying you can get him for $3.5 million. If you can get David Onyemata, let me put it this way. This might be a better way of describing it. We got to move on to the next topic. Calais Campbell at $10 million, or would you rather have both DJ Reader and David Onyemata for the same price? Meaning both of them for $10 million. Sign me up for the two players, right? Because again, injuries happen, rotations happen. So there's aspects of that could potentially come into the fold here. Daquan Jones, I'm not as big on him. 82, 65, 72, not horrible, but 34 years old. He's getting up there in age. I haven't seen enough. I would rather not sign him unless it's like a veteran minimum, right? Levi Ozaruke, if I'm saying it right, Owuzare, I can never say it. Emilio always gets it for me. He has to walk me through it. But he's with the Detroit Lions as well. He's going to be 28 years old, right? So, he's younger, okay? 68 in 2023, 70 in 2024, And then I think he was hurt last year, so he didn't have a PFF grade listed. Okay, so it looked as if in 23 and 24, he's ascending. He was the 23rd highest graded defensive lineman. I would not hate that signing, depending on what the value is. Again, $3 to $4 million range, absolutely, sign me up. Those are the type of players that we've went out and tried to get in the past, like a Jaron Reed right around that age. And, it didn't work out with Jaron Reed. We let him loose. Well, he just won a Super Bowl with Seattle. Now, was Jaron Reed the reason they won a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But isn't it funny? Teams that are winning championships are pressing in to some of these veteran signings, even if it's just a role player. I mean, think of the year that the Packers won the Super Bowl, Howard Green, right? There was nobody going, Howard Green's going to revolutionize the defense. But boy, when you hear Aaron Rodgers talk about him, you hear A.J. Hawk on the McAfee show talk about Howard Green, he was so pivotal in that Super Bowl run. So, again, these things matter. Now, when you talk about a young player, a young ascending player, Logan Hall really piques my interest. There's some people that are saying he's going to break the bank and get over $10 million. There's others that are saying they're probably around the $5 million mark. We'll see. But if it's around the $5 million, if it's anywhere from $5 to $7 million, I would be okay with Logan Hall being one of those two players or the only player we sign. And here's the reason. He's ascending. He's 25 years old. He's going to be 26 this year. 52, 59, 66. He's getting better every year. The trajectory suggests he's going to have his best year yet. He's stepping into his prime, and he's going to be 26 years old. And the fact that he hasn't lit the world on fire, you may be able to get him at a discounted rate. So, again, just to recap, if I could get two of these defensive linemen at $5 million or less, per, I would rather go that route than paying $10 million for a Calais Campbell. Although I got to say, I don't think Calais Campbell will get $10 million. I think it'll be closer to the 5 than the 10. But if you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about this potential signing at defensive line, no matter who the free agent is? Maybe you got somebody that wasn't on my list that you like better. Let us know in the comments. Let's take the conversation over there. Make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch all the live streams in the future. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And it was in the same article, excuse me, with Fox Sports. And again, full disclaimer, guys, if the stream goes down, we're having internet issues. We'll just end the stream there. So if you see it cut off, that's what happened. I apologize in advance. Hopefully we could stick this out. So they listed another player that's set to be a free agent that is predicted to sign with the Green Bay Packers, and that is Quay Walker. All right. Quay Walker obviously was drafted by the Packers 4 years ago. Stack backer, athletic freak, physical freak. He was kind of a hybrid linebacker. If I remember correctly, leading up to the draft, when we took him in the first round, it was like the last 5 days leading up to the draft, all the buzz was Quay Walker skyrocketing up boards. He's skyrocketing up everybody's board. So that's that late draft buzz that I about let one slip. I absolutely freaking hate the late draft buzz. Last second, this guy's a sin. It's like, what happened in the last 5 days to all of a sudden make this guy so much better? Or on the flip side, Ted McMillan, what in the last 2 weeks all of a sudden made this guy plummet down boards? It's because it's lying season. There's smoke screens. These GMs are going to send out these messages as if and leak out through the media. They're going to leak out through an insider. Hey, we really like this guy. Put that out there. They put that out there. Now all of a sudden other teams are going, is that BS or is that real? If it's real, let's move him up our board. Let's make sure we don't miss out on him. If somebody takes him one pick after us, we're going to be furious. I feel like that's kind of what happened with Quay Walker. But again, is Quay Walker a bad football player? I personally don't think he's a bad football player. I just don't think he's great. I honestly wouldn't consider him very good. I would say he's above average to good, in my opinion. Physical freak, elite measurables off the charts, right? But the read and recognition, the FBI, let me give you an example. I want to say it was against the Bears. I think it was against the Bears in a playoff game, or maybe it was the last meeting against the Bears, but it's probably the playoff game. There's a situation where he's playing a hook curl to the flat. And it's because, if I remember correctly, they were overloaded to one side. They were like in a trips or a tray set. And then they had 3 to the right, whether it was the tight end or not. Maybe it was 2 tight ends. Regardless, we still refer to that as tray, right? But the running back was to the left. And the running back, you could tell he's got hook curl flat responsibilities because the corner is going to bail on that side with the single receiver with the boundary X. The running back attacks the flat. Quay sees it. As he starts the route, Quay's kind of holding in the hook curl. He's watching the back. He shuffles. And so it's like he's reading that fine. They dump it in the flat, and Quay takes off. I remember mentally thinking, but physically sitting there in my seat watching the game. and going, oh, Quay's got this. Because Quay's an elite talent. And what happens? He shoots his shot, and I think it was Monunga, if I remember correctly. It may have been Swift or somebody else. They beat him to the corner and up the sideline. I'm going, okay, that's the point, kind of like the Keyshawn Nixon point that I reached where he refused to make the tackle at the goal line, then jumped on the pile being a tough guy and all that stuff. When Quay could not make that play in the flat, that's when I was like, okay, how can I continue to make excuses and try to justify that this guy is worth $15 million? He's just not. It's that simple. Will somebody pay him that? Absolutely. I think there's a team out there that's probably willing to pay that if free agency falls perfectly, right? So go get your money. This isn't anything personal against Quay, but it's like when that's supposed to be your superpower is your ability to run down, you being an elite athlete, it's your ability to run down elite athletes, and it doesn't happen. It's a hard buy for me, man. It really is. So when we roll down, here is what Fox Sports said about Quay Walker. Okay. They said, and he's listed as the 21st best free agent. So keep in mind, it's like 20 spots higher than our boy Calais Campbell. Okay. So they predicted Quay Walker would re-sign for the Packers at $10 million per year was the prediction. Here's what it says. Quay Walker, 25 years old, does a bit of everything for Green Bay. 4 straight 100 tackle seasons. Boys, that sounds great, don't it? That sounds absolutely awesome. Including 128 this past year. And he's active in the opposing backfield with 9 career sacks and 29 tackles for a loss. The Packers declined the 5th-year option, opted not to pay him $14.7 million in 2026, and he'll likely get about $10 million a year. So what they're saying here is the Packers were right by not hitting him with that 5th-year option of 14.7 because the true value is probably going to be around 10 million. And I think this is Goody's plan. Goody made them a low ball offer. Quay declined it. That happened, I think, back in October or November, if I remember correctly. And then he declines that. Now he's going to hit free agency. So if he comes back at 10 million a year, Goody has an opportunity to match that, right? Now, I know there's a portion of the fan base. This one felt closer to maybe 60% didn't want Quay at 10 million per, and maybe 40 to 45% wanted him back. So this is a lot closer to a kind of an even kill Packer fans want him back, right? But at 10 million a year, what else could you get at 10 million a year? Could you get a better linebacker? We're going to talk about some of the options. But he goes on to say Pro Football Focus doesn't think much of him, ranking him 76th amongst NFL linebackers with his pass coverage skills, bringing him down. Now, people say, PFF's full of crap. Go look at the passer rating with target on NFL Pro and Next Gen Stats. It's not just PFF. And you guys know I criticize PFF when I feel like PFF needs to be criticized. I'm not the grand poobah when you're allowed to criticize PFF. I've got my personal opinion just like everybody in the chat does. However, when you look at PFF says it's bad, and then you go to the NFL Pro data and you go, ooh, that looks bad too. The stop rate, the tackle for loss, you look at those numbers, you think, wow, those are great numbers. What's the tape showing? So again, I'm running it through the filter of what did PFF say? They said he's bad. Set that to the side. It's not everything. Watching the tape, boy, he's just so slow to shoot his shot. And then when he did shoot his shot, he couldn't handle that flat route up the sideline, flat to the sideline, almost like a some would call it a bench or a wheel route. It's like, well, he couldn't make that play. There's slow processing. You know, all these things coming into play is like, when I watch the tape, I'm not impressed. When I look at the NFL Pro and Next Gen Stats data, I'm not impressed. When I look at the PFF numbers, I'm not impressed. And even then, I'm not opposed to bringing him back. I just can't get myself to the 10 million mark. Now, will Goody do that? Possibly. And I'll tell you why. If there's one thing that Goody has shown in the past, and I see the super chats, guys, we'll get to them at the end of the segment. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. When you get to, trying to think of where I was seen that pop up and was like, oh crap, I missed one there. My bad. So, when you get to the point where it's, if I don't re-sign him, I'm admitting I made a mistake. That's where ego can get in the way. And that's where I respect people like John Schneider that just won a Super Bowl. That's where I respect people like Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman will tear it down and build it back just like that. There's no emotional tie to, well, that was my guy. I drafted him. And if I let him loose, people were going to think I failed. Newsflash, if we continue to get lapped by these teams with Super Bowls, like the Eagles, you know, I think they won 2 here recently, right? The Chiefs have created a whole new dynasty. Just insert whatever name. We've seen what the Patriots did this whole time since we've won a Super Bowl. If we continue to get lapped by other GMs, why are we worried about losing our job or worried about our reputation if we decide not to bring somebody back we drafted in the first round? The only thing worse than making a bad draft pick is refusing to admit you made a bad draft pick. Everybody makes bad draft picks. Let me give you a recent example. Darnell Savage. I was excited about Darnell Savage. Athletic traits through the roof, right? I thought if they play him at safety and he's aggressive like he was in college, this could be a good pick. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I knew right away Savage was a bad pick. Hopefully you guys know I don't fan like that, right? I don't pretend to know more than NFL front office executives. But when you see how Darnell Savage underperformed year after year after year, and then they slapped him with a fifth-year option, I went, I'm done. Everybody liked to rake Joe Barry over the coals for how bad his defense was, right? Although the numbers were very similar to Hafley's recently, that's a story for a different day. But they raked Barry over the coals. What do you think Jeff Hafley could have done if he had Jonathan Owens and Darnell Savage as his safeties? Are we really sitting here saying that Darnell Savage and Jonathan Owens would have had the same amount of success as all-pro Xavier McKinney? I don't mean to laugh, but dang. And young stud Evan Williams. And also, we had Keyshawn in the slot. Hafley had Bullard. You see what I'm saying? So, it's not as cut and dry. Well, the point is, that's another example of us going, that's our guy. We're going to keep him. Recently, Devontae Wyatt, we slapped the fifth-year option on him. I like it. I kind of agree with it. I think, okay, that gets you one more year with him. He would hit the market and get a bunch of money, and you could kind of help build the floor in the defensive tackle room. But did it work out? I mean, that's what we're truly grading here, right? He had one more year left on his deal. Let me put it this way. If you could go back in a time machine last year and say, Packer fans, do you want to hit Devontae Wyatt with the fifth-year option, yes or no? I think the majority would say yes. But if they were to say, but here's the deal, that fifth-year option hits in 2026, and he's going to miss half of the season with injuries again. He's going to underperform, miss half the season, and then you're going to be on the hook for that fifth-year option as he's rehabbing that injury. Would you still take that deal? I think we would all probably say no, right? Because if he was a free agent right now, his market might be a little more limited because he's rehabbing an injury. And this is business side of football and sports. We have to acknowledge those shortcomings. If we're going to acknowledge all the shortcomings that everybody's had over the years, the Mike McCarthy's, the Joe Barrys, right? The Dom Capers, the Aaron Rodgers. There was times he was catching a lot of criticism in Green Bay, right? Matt LaFleur, Rich Bisaccia, all these guys. We've got to hold the GM to the same standard, because when I look around the league, there's one thing that's just glaring to me is we're the youngest team in the league, and we continuously bring back these guys that we think are the answer. When I think we would all agree, we've looked up and go, they're not bad football players, but they're definitely not Quay's not on the level of a Devin Lloyd. He's just not. He's not played that way, right? Well, guess what? Devin Lloyd's going for, they're saying possibly $15 million in free agency. I would rather go out and spend $15 million on a Devin Lloyd than I would Quay Walker at $10 million. That's just me personally. Now, $7 million, yeah, give me Quay at $7. I'm all about it. So let's move along here real quick. So again, they had him ranked 76. I explained some of those details. So the calculated market value for Quay Walker is $8.3 million. So 8.3, you're in that ballpark where I'd be okay with it. Okay. Because 8.3 at a 3 or a 4 year deal is going to be probably 5 or 6 against the cap year one. You can make a decision in year 2 and 3 on whether or not you want to go post June 1 and move on if it just fails, miserably. But here you see projected contract according to PFF, 3 year, $15 million per. Okay. Look at the PFF grades. 2023, 58. He was the 66th graded linebacker. 24, he went from a 58 down to a 57.2. So he got worse according to PFF. And then in 2025, he dropped all the way down to a 46.0. Well, how does he have so many tackles? Because those tackles are being made down the field where it's resulting in negative EPA in a bad way for the defense, if that makes sense. Positive EPA for the opposing team. So who would I rather have? Here's Devin Lloyd at the top of the list. Let's compare these guys. They're saying his market value is $15 million per. They got Devin Lloyd at $16 million per. And again, take these numbers with a grain of salt, right? So Devin Lloyd, $16 million per. Look at his PFF grades. 78, 76, 88. And boy, oh boy, when you go look at his passer rating when targeted, I think he was top 5 amongst all stackbackers in passer rating when targeted. And again, that matters. We can't on one side of the fence get upset every time a tight end beats us for a crosser for 17 yards, right? When the stackbacker hesitated and didn't close that window up, especially in our match coverage we played a lot of last year. You can't on one hand say we hate that, and then on the other hand say we're okay with bringing players back that have struggled. I mean, you look at the comparisons there, guys, and I know it's just PFF, but that's ugly. That is really, really ugly. So that's why I would prefer Devin Lloyd at $16 million over Quay. Now, do I think we're going to sign Devin Lloyd at $16 million? No, I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that happens. Let's move along. Devin Bush, 57, 79, 87 out of Cleveland. His market value is $12 million. Would I be okay with Devin Bush at $12 million? Heck yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. That's a no-brainer for me. So we've already identified 2 stackbackers we would prefer over Quay Walker. Let's move on to a Wisconsin favorite here. Leo Chenal. All right. Leo Chenal, his PFF grades 84, 81, 75. He's 25 years old. Keep in mind, Devin Bush is 27 years old, and so is Devin Lloyd. But Leo Chenal, 25 years old, we've seen him peak at 84, and now 81, 75. Those grades smoke Quay Walker's grades, right? Guess what his market value is showing right now? I don't know if it'll hold true. Right now, 2 years, $6 million per year. So who would you rather have? Quay Walker at $8 million, if that holds true, or would you rather have Leo Chenal at $6 million? I'd rather have Leo Chenal. So we've got 3 stackbackers we like better than Quay so far. Let's move along to the ageless wonder. We want to get a little bit older, right? A little more veteran presence. You want these mental mistakes to stop happening on defense. Put a Bobby Wagner right in the middle of it. Immediately, people will say he's too old, Clayton. Y'all were saying that in 2022. And then he came out in 2023 and had an 82.4 on 1,100 snaps. Then in 2024, he jumped to an 88.3 on 1,200 snaps. And then a 79.3 last year at 1,100 snaps. So again, 7th, 3rd, and 7th best linebacker. What's his value? $8.5 million. Who would you rather have, Quay or Bobby Wagner? For me, it's a freaking no-brainer, Quay Walker all day long. Another player on the list, Demario Davis. This dude is older. He's almost up there with Calais Campbell. But look at the grades, 89, 73, 80. He's 37 years old. They're saying 1 year, $8 million. Obviously, I would rather have a Bobby Wagner, Leo Chenal at $8 million. And if you're willing to crack the $10 million mark, I'd go out and try to get a Devin Bush or a Devin Lloyd. That's just me personally. So that's how I see the stackbacker position. That's who Fox Sports is projecting that the Packers sign. They're saying they think he will re-sign with the Packers at $10 million per. So I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments. If you're watching this back later, let us know. How do you feel about the stackbacker position? How do you feel about Quay Walker? I'm going to hang out with the chat now, but you guys let us know in the comments when you're watching this back later how you feel about that whole situation. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon, do all that YouTube stuff for us. We greatly appreciate it. All right, let's see what the chat's saying about all this, and I'm going to try to get caught up. I know we had a super chat here from Pack Attack. Greatly appreciate you, buddy. Says, where would you say our Super Bowl window currently stands at? My opinion has not changed, Pack Attack. I said this last year. I felt like we had a 3-year Super Bowl window. In 3 years, our cap really blimps, and we got to make a decision on Jordan Love. We got to make a decision on Micah Parsons. It felt like we've got 2 more years left in that window. The first year got decimated by injuries, okay? And this is why I was very vocal when we were talking about all this. When the injuries happened and everybody was saying, fire Matt LaFleur, fire the whole staff, I'm like, God, we didn't even make it through year 1 of a 3-year window. Like, we just now went all in. And yeah, you got bit by the injury bug and it sucks. But when that happens, right, it's like now all of a sudden we're ready to scrap it and just start over. So I feel like we're in year 2 of the 3-year window, Pack Attack. If that makes sense. Now, that can change, obviously. That's very, very fluid situation. It's not like, okay, if we don't do it in 3 years, well, we got to definitely scrap it down. It's going to come down to how other players perform. Do we hit on a late-round gem that propels us, man, this guy's going to anchor our defense, or this guy's going to be an absolute stud in our offense? Let's say Savion Williams turns into the next Larry Fitzgerald. I'm not saying he will, just for, conversation piece. If he emerges and he just bypasses everybody. Christian Watson, too. He just soars past Christian Watson. He's the number one receiver, and we got him in a third-round pick on a cheap deal. And all of a sudden, we feel like we don't have to pay a Christian Watson, or we don't have to pay, a Jaden Reed or somebody like that. And now all of a sudden, you've got one of the top 5 or top 10 wide receivers in the league. That changes the dynamic. Maybe that window gets extended out a little bit because now you don't have to pay 20, 25 million for a receiver to lock down your number one. Now, I want to make sure people don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying that we shouldn't re-sign Christian Watson. I would write him a check today. He showed me everything as a leader, as a player. He's physically stronger and faster than he was before. His hands have gotten better. His route running's gotten better. He's a leader in the locker room. I love Christian Watson, so I'd be all about it. I really, really would. So, with all that being said, there's just things that may change that window a little bit, may extend that window. You know what else could happen? I don't even want to say it because I don't want to come across as being negative. This is clearly a hypothetical, right? It's just, what if Jordan Love all of a sudden just regresses like crazy, right? If we come out this year and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, I do not think that'll happen. He's going in the opposite direction. This dude is soaring. His stock is through the roof. But if he struggled this year and he went back to say he wasn't even a starting caliber quarterback and Malik Willis leaves in free agency and now we're down to, well, we got to find our franchise quarterback. Obviously, that's the end of the 3-year window, right? But the way things are projecting, Pack Attack, I would say we're in year 2 of 3 is what I would say. So let's see what else is going on in the chat. Cheddarhead said Raiders going to pay Quay $20 million. I wouldn't doubt it. There's teams that I think teams will, they're going to immediately, these free agents guys, the way this works with GMs is they've got NFL scouts and they've got college football scouts. And obviously the college football scouts put an entire profile together for their draft board. Everybody is going to look at all these free agents, Goody included, and say, what kind of draft grade did we have on these players? Okay. So there are going to be teams across the league. Remember when he was skyrocketing up board? That probably could change him. So they'll probably approach it that way and overpay for Quay. That's why I don't see him coming back to Green Bay. That's the one I kind of disagree with there with what Fox Sports predicted, because I feel like you could probably get Calais Campbell for less than $10 million, but Quay, I think there's going to be a team that'll pay him $10 to $15 million and probably outbid us in terms of the guaranteed money, if that makes sense. It's a very interesting question, though, for sure. Let's see what else we got in here. Yeah, Mike Z says the Chanel comparison is insane. That's why I love doing these shows, Mike, and I love doing them live with you guys because we could kind of talk about it and have a conversation. That's how I felt. It was just like the fact that these other players are getting paid far less and they were later draft picks and they're outperforming our first-round picks. I was going to do a segment, on Goody and his draft, where he's kind of swung and missed in the draft here lately, not to harp on it, but just to kind of prove like, hey, here's where we need to get better, right? And we got to stop pretending like, well, no, I got it right. They need to play better. That's what bothered me about Goody's press conference here recently was the vibe I got was, no, I think we got everything we need to win a championship right now. And these guys just need to play better is kind of the vibe I got. And I'm going, so what I just heard you say is we don't need to improve the roster at all. Now, again, he's always said one thing. I mean, Goody has blatantly lied to the media. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. You guys be the judge of that. But man, oh man, has he been, with Aaron Jones, he said he's the heart and soul of this team. Absolutely, he's going to be back. And what was it? It felt like one day later, his ass was gone. They shipped him out, right? They cut him loose. So, take that with a grain of salt on how they attack these moves and what they actually say in the media. But I'm from the Brian Billick, and he learned this from Bill Walsh. The great Bill Walsh said, anytime you're speaking to the media, you're speaking to your team. Well, I didn't like that message. I didn't like the message the GM said, which basically, we got everything we need here. We just got to play better. If I'm a player, I'm going, okay, so he doesn't think we need to improve the roster at all. Now, on one hand, some people would say, I bet your players love to hear that. I bet they love to hear it. Hell, I bet they did. Oh, my job ain't in jeopardy. We're good to go. I don't want my players thinking like that. I want my players to be held accountable. Just like I want my GM to be held accountable, just like I want my head coach to be held accountable. Lord knows Matt LaFleur was held accountable this year from the fan base. It got loud. Granted, it was 20, 25% of the fan base, but still it was like, boy, well, I'm watching him scheme guys open and guys not executing. I'm watching Matthew Golden run the wrong routes at times, and that's going to happen with a young receiver, which is why you can't bank on a rookie player even in the first round. When was the last time a first-round pick for the Packers had an immediate impact? and I'm asking a serious question. These are the things that have become revelations to me this year that I'm like, man, I think I have been giving Goody too much grace and too much, you know what I mean? Too much credit. I mean, think about it. I think of the recent first round picks, and you go back to, Jair was one that popped early, graded in the 60s, and then obviously became, I think some would consider an elite corner in his prime, right? So there's one, got to give him credit for that, right? I'm trying to think. Darnell Savage, that was a first round pick. That was a swing and a miss, right? Quay Walker, first round pick. It feels like that was a swing and a miss, at least right now, in my opinion, for a first. And here's the other thing: draft position matters. Like, if Quay had been drafted in the third round, I'd love him as a player. We'd be talking about re-signing him at $3 to $5 million per. But the fact that his athleticism skyrocketed him in the first round talent, that's why his market's going to be overinflated, in my opinion. So if he'd been a third round pick, I'd go, that was a great pick. That's like AJ Hawk. AJ Hawk was a far more productive, far better linebacker than Quay Walker. Okay. However, AJ Hawk was a top 5 pick, so people consider him a bust. Some Packer fans do. I think he was a very underappreciated player, to be honest with you. So that's a perfect comparison of the two. Like, you know what I'm saying? That if you were to say who's the better linebacker, AJ Hawk or was it Quay Walker, I think there's a portion of the fan base I would disagree with. I think there's a portion of the fan base say Quay Walker was better because he's taller, right? He's leaner. He looks more physically opposing. Well, his RAS was through the roof. Well, I mean, AJ Hawks was too in terms of, I think he ran a 4.40, right? He was kind of an athletic freak, just a smaller stature, kind of your traditional early 2000s stack backer, right? So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah, I'm with you though, Mike. The Chanel comparison is it's pretty wild, man, for sure. Let's see what Wolfman Madden says. Quay needs to go. Money doesn't match his grades at all. And again, Wolfman, I agree, but it's not just about the grades, right? I think we would all acknowledge that. You look at the stats, you look at the tape, everything. It just, when you watch him on tape, you don't go, oh yeah, I'm giving that dude $15 million per. Just can't do it, right? So I agree with you there for sure. Let's see what else happens in the chat here. Just want to get you guys involved. J. Cole getting straight to the point. J. Love for MVP. Hey, made me a believer this year, man. His accuracy got so much better this year, Jay. Wow. I mean, wow. Chase Green in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He says, Clayton, I would spend money and picks on D tackle. That room needs improvement. Completely agree, man. And we got a cheat sheet here for defensive tackles. We kind of laid it out for you guys. The top defensive tackles according to PFF's rankings, and again, take them with a grain of salt. Most of the time, their rankings don't match up with their grades, so it's kind of weird, I don't know what you call it, their dynamic they have over there at PFF. But here's the names on the cheat sheet, or just on the sheet in general, and I'll tell you my 4 favorite once again. DJ Reader, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Daquan Jones, John Franklin Myers, Stephen Joseph Days, Sheldon Ranks. You've got Deshaun Han, I think is his name, Christian Wilkins. People are still in love with Christian Wilkins. I don't want to dog anybody, but all I've got to say is do a little research as to why he got cut from the last team and where he's kind of been. That's been his MO the entire time. It's a different cat. I would not want to bring that in the locker room personally. Great football player when he was on the field, but just a really weird dynamic there. I'll leave it at that. Levi Ozaruke, if I'm saying it right. He's on the list. Shelby Harris and Logan Hall. Now, I've marked my favorites. So here's my cheat sheet of defensive tackles, okay? And we've got a free agency position of need cheat sheet that I've shared in our Patreon group. You guys can go check that out. Actually, let me throw it up here for you guys so make it a little bit easier. If you want to support us and join our community, just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, and you'll have access to all this stuff that we post in there. You can download these images and keep them for yourself as well. Also want to give a shout out to Stick to the Model, a website we've been using. They reached out and asked us to be a partner with them because I was just like, man, I sent them a message going, dude, this is an unbelievable tool y'all created. So they may potentially partner up. And I just want you guys to continue to support them. It might be something where you'd have to type in a code and I would get credit for sending you over there. I told them, don't even worry about that. I don't need that money. It ain't a big deal. But I would like to continue to promote it for you guys and show it on the show and just drive traffic. So I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah. So anyway, defensive tackle, Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Levi Ozarike, and then Logan Hall. Those are the 4 I would like to potentially sign, to go back to Chase Green's comment there. So me personally, that's the approach I would like to see them take. Give me one of those four. Hell, give me two of them. I'll be okay with that. And if you got to put Stackhouse on the practice squad and activate him when you need him or what have you, like I would be okay with Calais Campbell and David Onyemata. I would be okay with Calais Campbell and Ozarike. What I'd love to see happen is get Calais Campbell in there for that veteran presence and still solid play, and then get Logan Hall if you can get him at a deal. That way you got a young ascending defensive tackle, and now you don't feel obligated to re-sign Devontae Wyatt to a overpriced extension, and he's 28 years old, right? Logan Hall's going to be 26. So to me, that makes more sense than Devontae Wyatt. And when you look at the PFF grades, I think you'd be shocked. I think you'd be surprised at just how bad Devontae Wyatt's graded out as well. Now, again, take that with a grain of salt. Maybe you think he's a better player. I think he's a good pass rusher and a below average run defender. That's just me. And I can't justify overpaying for someone with that kind of profile. Jason Y with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. This is why I think Aaron Banks will be back. I think I know what you're referring to, Jason. When Goody won't admit, hey, I made a mistake there. Unfortunately, I think you're probably right. I would rather go post June 1, cut your losses. Again, the only thing worse than making a bad signing or a bad draft pick is refusing to admit that you made a mistake. And I think the great general managers were quick to admit they made mistakes and just move on, So I think you're probably right, man. I think you're probably right. I think he'll probably be back. Now, let's try to find the positive there. Let's don't get all depressed, right? The positive is he is a veteran. So the roster's not going to get younger if they cut him loose or if they keep him, right? So that's a positive. Who knows? Maybe he takes a year or two step. He did battle some injuries. You see him. I'm really trying to sell myself on this, right? It's tough. It's a tough sell for sure. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you, buddy. H.E. Soder with the super. Appreciate you, Soder. The issue has been very few drafted players have made a second year at jump. No idea if that is evaluation, coaching, or where they play him. It's a good question. Me personally, I don't like the fact that two of those options are geared around blaming someone else other than the evaluation. At some point, I think that I'm not asking you to do this, Soder, but this is where I'm at. I guess the best way to say this, Soder, your super chat here is where I was 2 years ago. I was kind of like, well, we don't really know. Now I'm to the point where I'm just like, man, he's hit on good draft picks. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Goody has been the worst GM. I'm just looking across the rest of the league and going, damn, boy, Elliott Wolf turned that around real quick. Seattle, John Schneider. I mean, now you're talking about his second Super Bowl ring. Let's just go ahead and flip this roster right on around. Bang, here we go. There's your ring, boys. Like at some point, I just remember, and maybe this is a fault of mine, I remember everybody wanting to run Mike McCarthy out of town. Okay. Now, Goody technically took over in 2019 or 2018, which was Mike McCarthy's last year, right? But it's pretty much common knowledge he was running things on the scouting side behind the scenes, really everything behind the scenes, it sounded like. He was one of like the top three that was really in charge of handling stuff while Ted Thompson's, obviously his health declined, right? So I kind of look at Goody's been here longer than 2018, but if you just want to say, no, we got to count 2018. In 2018, it was Mike McCarthy's fault, right? So we fire Mike McCarthy, we move on. 2019, you bring in Matt LaFleur, and they go to the back-to-back 13-win seasons, right? And they go to the NFC championships and all that. Well, what happened in those games? Why did they fall short? Special teams, right? Now, there's been a big conversation on that. It sounds like we potentially lowballed, Darren Rizzi, and that's why he didn't come here. I know Rob Domofsky said Darren Rizzi wasn't ever coming here. He didn't want to shovel snow. Well, he just ended up in Denver, so I don't know how that. I think it snows in Denver. Could be wrong. Anyway, so I think we'd all agree special teams, the punt blocked and returned for a touchdown was the reason we lost against the 49ers in that game in the snow at Lambeau. I know many people try to, well, it's because the offense was so bad, and it was Aaron Rodgers trying to lock on to Devontae Adams. So that's when the whole it's Aaron Rodgers' fault started up, even though they couldn't take it too far because he was the reigning MVP, right? Or he won MVP, what is it, back-to-back years, I think 19 and 20, if I remember correctly, or was it 2021? Might have been 2021. Regardless. So you can see the blame went from it was McCarthy's fault to it's the special teams' fault, right? And then it goes from it's the special teams' fault to it's Aaron Rodgers' fault, right? Aaron Rodgers started catching some heat. He won't throw over the middle, and he won't run the plays that Matt LaFleur, blah, 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 right? So he started getting some of the blame. And then God knows Joe Barry took a brunt. Joe Barry took it on the chin, right? So it was Joe Barry's fault. So you move on from Joe Barry, right? And then you bring in the next DC, right? And now all of a sudden it's back to special teams, and now it's Matt LaFleur's fault, right? It's a combination of Rich Bisaccia and Matt LaFleur were the issues. And the problem I have with that is there's been one constant through the McCarthy was the fault, through the special teams was the fault, through the Aaron Rodgers was at fault, Joe Barry was at fault, Rich Bisaccia's at fault, Matt LaFleur's at fault. There's been one thing here this entire time, and it's Brian Gutekunst. And that's why I'm mind boggled. I'm like, does he got pictures of somebody on his phone? How does everybody else skate by, but he doesn't, you know? And again, I don't want Brian Gutekunst fired. Please hear me. I think he's a very good general manager. And you're probably going, well, why wouldn't you consider him great, Clayton? Because they haven't gotten over the hump. Well, that's not his fault. How can you say that? How can we say it's not the general manager's fault when we've marched out the youngest roster in the league 3 years in a row? And then he sits at the presser, and you got people literally, beat reporters getting angry because he's going, no, I don't. I think you got to get your young players on the field. Okay, you get your young players on the field, and you feel like it don't pan out, and then you move on to other young players again and again and again and again. And again, I know he's not – it's not that Goody hasn't signed free agents. We've seen he signed free agents, right? He did it last year, but that was always the thing to fall back on too. Boy, he's really good in free agency. You know, he went and got Xavier McKinney, and he got Josh Jacobs. Nailed those. We were praising him. Man, Goody crushed that free agency. Last year, Nate Hobbs, Aaron Banks. Again, man, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to sit here. Not that you are, Soder. I'm not saying that at all, man. I'm just telling you my standpoint, guys. Like I'm not going to sit here and just go la 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 la. Goody's perfect. Goody's perfect. I'm not going to do it. Just like I called out when Aaron Rodgers was wrong. I also called out when I felt like, man, they're putting blame on him. I remember saying this. They're saying that he will not run Matt LaFleur's play calls, that he's just running whatever he wants because they're seeing him go can. I said, keep that same energy when Jordan Love takes over, because I promise you, I will bet the farm that that's not going to change. And lo and behold, Jordan Love comes out and he's changing the plays at the line of scrimmage. He's canning to a second and third play, right? He's giving the little hand signals and getting Christian Watson on the same wavelength, right? The same stuff that Aaron did. So again, it was just easy to kind of make Aaron the boogeyman, because I know he was somewhat divisive in his stances with the whole, COVID and all that, right? That's why, just like with the halftime show, I removed that, guys. I'm like, y'all tune in to hear me talk about ball. Y'all don't want to hear my personal opinions on that crap. What makes my political personal opinions or my whatever, is in the news right now, personal opinions, more important than anyone else's? Yeah. If I have politics in the title, I feel like y'all were in here, then we might be doing the right thing, right? But this is a football podcast. Why would I ever bring that in? That's why I couldn't understand why people, portion of the fan base, just descended upon Aaron like, okay, now he's the most horrible person in the world. Get him out of here. Now, hindsight being 2020, obviously, and I will say this, you've got to tip your cap to Goody for that Jordan Love pick. Goody knows how to identify quarterbacks, because Jordan Love is, and that's the most important piece. So you talk about priorities. That's why some people would say, how can you say he's good, Clayton? Or no, very good. How can you say he's a very good GM, Clayton? That's one of the main reasons right there is, boy, oh boy, he handpicked Jordan Love, and Jordan Love turned into a very fine football player, right? So again, it would take him winning a Super Bowl to get in that great column for me. And if he went all in, and let's say he goes out and he gets 3 or 4 veteran players, and you could really tell, boy, they pushed it all in the middle right here, especially with the Micah Parsons trade. Great trade. Completely agree with the Micah Parsons trade. Completely agree with it. If he can get a Super Bowl ring, now he's in the great category for me. If he wins 2, I mean, that's the thing about John Schneider. And thank you for the super chat, Soda. Appreciate you, buddy. Joe Trev says it here. John Schneider has the golden eye. And listen, I remember listening to podcasts and hearing Packer fans, John Schneider's overrated. John Schneider's overrated. Let me tell you what John Schneider is right now. In my opinion, he is in the talk for Hall of Fame caliber general manager. People are going to go, what are you talking about, Clayton? Name the amount of GMs that won 2 Super Bowls. I'll wait. Because it's a short list. It's a very, very short list. What's the ultimate goal? To be the youngest roster in the league every year? To say we're $30 million under the cap? Boy, we know how to balance the books. Or is it to win the damn ring? Right? And sooner or later, you got to acknowledge you ain't been able to win the ring. You can say the same thing with Matt LaFleur, but you've also got to run it through the filter of why did they not win the ring? And if that why means, well, your special teams was absolute trash. Wasn't Rich Bisaccia here when that happened? It was somebody else, right? The special teams is trash. Who's in charge of building the bottom third of the roster to help bolster special teams? Because we know Bill Belichick put emphasis on it. We know these other teams are putting emphasis on it. You can see it. You can tell, Mike Vrabel doing the same thing. He's building it from the same. He is basically Bill Belichick 2.0, if you haven't noticed. He is. Now, he's a lot better with the players than Bill was, right? Bill was very just standoffish, cold. That players behind the scenes say he wasn't like that, but at least to that extent. Well, how we look at this, but I just want everybody to be held accountable equally. Like, okay, it's like Jordan Love. If he comes out this year and he tanks, hey, we got to call it. I'm going to call it. Like we say, if you see it, you got to say it. I'm always going to operate that way on this show. If I see something, I'm going to say it. Rashawn Gary, the last 3 years, people have been saying he's washed, get him out of here, he sucks. And I'm going, no, he don't. No, he don't. No, he don't. He's worth the money. $11 million against the cap. What, $12 million against the cap? What are you talking about? He's leading our team in sacks and quarterback pressure percentage. Why would this year the cap number blimps to, what's the note out here? 28 million? Yeah. Now is the time for me to have that conversation. I'm not telling anybody else how to fan, but now's the time that I go, okay, now a decision's got to be made. Gary, if you want to take a pay cut, we'd love to have you back. I think you're still a good player, a very good player, in my opinion. Got to have you back at the right price. If you're not willing to take a pay cut, completely understand. We're going to cut you loose. We're going to free up $11 million and we're going to move on. It's that simple, right? Now is the time. Again, if you see it, you got to say it. Last year, the second half of the season, he really tapered off, and there's no way he's going to be worth that $28 million. If he was on the books for 10, 11, 12 million, yes, it's worth it. He led our defensive linemen in run stops outside of Kobe Wooden, who played the one touch spot. So all that being taken into consideration, just saying you got to acknowledge when it's time to move on, right? So I don't want it to come across like there's never that point for me for anybody in particular. Thomas Ott with the super chat. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, I definitely put some blame on Rodgers, but it's looking more like maybe Rodgers carried the team more than we thought. I support Goot, but it also stunk letting Elliott Wolf walk. That's people try to compare, Thomas, they try to compare like, should we have kept John Schneider instead of Goody? John Schneider got hired in 2010, right? That was years ago, right? He used to babysit Elliott Wolf. That's how long ago it was. So that's not a good. Elliott Wolf's the good comparison, right? He's the good comparison. Looking back, hindsight being 2020, which would you guys rather have? Do you think we should have hired Elliott Wolf? Because it pissed Ron Wolf off. If you guys don't know, do a little research there. He was really disappointed in the Packers that they chose Brian Gutekunst over Elliott Wolf. But again, what's it come down to? It's all about rings. Well, neither of them have rings yet, but Elliott Wolf in his second year as general manager just went to the freaking Super Bowl. That's something Goody has not done since 2018, right? Since becoming the GM in 2018. So you look at that, go, well, Goody found Jordan Love. He did, but Elliott Wolf found Drake May, right? I'm not saying that Drake May is better than Jordan Love. I think there's still time will tell if that holds true or not. But this year, there was a lot of analytics that suggested Drake May played significantly better than Jordan Love. Not significantly better, but better than Jordan Love. He's an MVP candidate, right? So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Thomas. I don't hate Goody either. I support him. That's the other thing. the portion of the fan base that ticks me off the most are the ones that they'll make an emotional tweet, they'll make an emotional comment on a podcast, and because they allowed their crybaby in them to get so tore up at that moment, they stick to that no matter what, and you can tell they're rooting for the team to do bad so they can go, see, I told you guys so, as opposed to, hell yeah, the Packers are Super Bowl champs. I do not understand that thought process. So again, I'm with you, Thomas. I hope we're looking up next year. We win a Lombardi, and I have to go, boys. I was hard on Goody, and he shut me up. Right. And again, all that I think is going to come into play right here this offseason with all these potential free agents. I mean, we got a ton of cornerback free agents, defensive tackle, stack backer. We talked about that today. He'll even tight end. There's 4 tight ends I would be okay with signing. We got Tucker Kraft. I know Tucker Kraft got hurt last year, and what do we have? Nothing, right? So again, injuries are going to happen. And if we're going to continue to press into 12 personnel, which is the direction right now, that could change, but right now that's the direction that the league's going in, is 12 and even 13 personnel. If that's the direction you're going in, I wouldn't hate going and getting a Charlie Kohler or a Dallas Goedert, or, like Travis Kelce. He's probably going to retire, and if he does come back, I'm sure he'll come back and play for the Chiefs. He wouldn't go anywhere else. If you could tell me we could get Travis Kelce on a 1-year, $5 million deal, I think you'd be silly not to have a guy who's won that many rings come in and help your tight end room a little bit and play with Tucker Kraft. I think it's very, very unreasonable to say Travis Kelce could potentially sign with the Packers. That's not going to happen. So don't take that the wrong way. But I think you could improve the tight end room. We talk about center. Tyler Linderbaum's at the top of my list. You got Connor McGovern. Very interesting there as well. That might be a nice little stopgap at center. So you don't force yourself to have to draft a center like a Jake Slaughter or somebody like that that's highest on your board and reach a little bit to make sure you get a position of need. And then at guard, you've got, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 6 guards I would be okay with signing. Samalo is one. David Edwards is one. Elijah Vera Tucker is really interesting. Joel Bitonio, not my favorite, although I think that would help the offensive line. Kevin Zeitler, Ed Ingram, Tevin Jenkins is another one, former Chicago Bear. I can't remember who he played for last year, but he's kind of popped here recently. And you're going, Clayton, you'd rather have those guys over Aaron Banks? Absolutely. Well, why wouldn't Goody go sign one of those guys for $6 million per, as opposed to giving Aaron Banks that huge contract? I'll tell you why. Because he probably had him significantly higher on his draft board than others did. Okay. Definitely higher than the 49ers did, because the 49ers weren't willing to pay him that contract, So I would rather, give me someone at $6 million per, as opposed to, our boy Aaron Banks, $24.8 million against the cap this year. That'll, at a minimum, that'll have to be restructured. If we start the season and he's on the cap at $24.8 million, we march on 1265. I'm just joking. We don't march, but we're going to be very upset. I'll just leave it at that. So thank you for the super chat, Thomas. Appreciate you, buddy. Joe Trev with the super chat. I personally credit John Schneider partially for the 2010 Packers. That's the other thing, Joe Trev. And I understand there's a portion of the fan base that would probably say, well, no, you can't look at it like that. You can't look at it like that. I get it. I can understand that. I can respect that opinion. But also, John Schneider being here with the Packers championship team in 2010, how much was he doing behind the scenes? Like I said, when he was here, he was babysitting Elliott Wolf for some of the time he was here. So obviously he was very, very involved that final year. He was probably the head scout, I would imagine. He was kind of running the scouting department for Ted, is what I would think it was. And Goody was obviously probably below him at the time. So the real decision to be made there would be, do we let Ted Thompson go and do we keep John Schneider, right? Well, no, you can't do that, because Ted Thompson just won the Super Bowl. And Ted Thompson, the result of the roster that Ted Thompson built is why the Seattle Seahawks are coming calling for John Schneider, right? But I think you make a great point, Joe Trev. Maybe John Schneider was way more involved with that team. I know this. Since he left in 2010, right? Since John Schneider left, now you guys correct me if I'm wrong. John Schneider, he was on staff when they won the Super Bowl, right? And it was the next year, because 2010 to 2011, like it was technically the calendar year 2011 when we won the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly, but it was the 2010 regular season. That gets a little tricky. But I will say this, Joe Trev, John Schneider won more Super Bowls than Ted Thompson. So I can't sit here and say Ted Thompson, even though Ted Thompson was John Schneider's mentor, I can't say Ted Thompson was a better GM than Schneider because he doesn't have those pelts on the wall, you know? So that's a great point, though, Joe. Appreciate you. Jason Y with the super chat. I may be in the minority, but doubling down on one position in the draft seems a lack of conviction on your picks. I personally like doubling down, Jason Y, because you don't know when you're going to miss, you know? But you make a great point. You make a really good point. Like, if you truly believe Luke Musgrave is better than Tucker Kraft, right? And that's what Goody was saying when he drafted Luke Musgrave in the second and Tucker Kraft in the third. You got it wrong. And listen, I like Luke Musgrave better than Tucker Kraft. I say I didn't watch him personally and go, yeah, I like him better. Maybe I would have liked Tucker Kraft more. I don't know. You guys know I don't do that. Our board suggested Luke Musgrave was slightly better than Tucker Kraft. Okay. So I'm not sitting here saying, well, Goody's an idiot. Now, I'm not saying that, but with what you're saying there, that's the first thing that popped up in my mind. When you talk about doubling down on one position, it screams a lack of conviction in your picks. Yeah, we really like Luke Musgrave, but we also like Tucker Kraft. I like doubling down because all GMs miss. There's no GMs in the league that are perfect on their draft picks. It's just not true, right? And I know you're not saying that, Jason, but when you take all that into perspective, it's like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. That is lack of conviction. Same thing with safety. They went Javon Bullard in the second, Evan Williams in the third. Is that how that went? I think that's how that went. Maybe Evan Williams was in the fourth. But we had Javon Bullard higher than Evan Williams. Lo and behold, Evan Williams ends up being the better safety, although Bull is playing in the slot. And we wasn't in the draft room. Maybe that was the plan all along was, hey, year two, we're going to put Bullard in the slot. Because he did play the slot his next to last year in college for Georgia, if I remember correctly. Then he moved to safety. So maybe I got that flip, but regardless, he had slot background. So maybe that was their plan all along. And this is just like when we break down the tape, we say, all right, I think this player ran the wrong route, or I think this player missed his assignment, but we're not in the meeting room. I'm always going to preface it or always going to plug it that way because we don't know. You know, they may have told the safety, the box safety, because we're playing this team this week as opposed to a team that we approached it different 3 weeks ago. They may be saying, hey, look, I really want you to hold tight in the hook curl underneath if the tight end's the two on the right. Because our tape study, our film study suggests when they get the tight end and the two on the right, they're going to try to hit you with a curl route here. So I want you to clamp down on that. And then they run a seam route, and it looks like, oh, crap, the backer bit too hard, and he gets beat. Well, it's on tape. We're going to look up and go, man, you can't get beat over the top like that. Play that top down. Well, if they were in the meeting room that week and they said, hey, when Kelsey's in the two to the right, clamp on the curl, you clamp on the curl, he hits you with the double move and beats you, the coaches aren't going to go, what are you doing there? Coaches are going to go, hey, we, they set us up for that. They put on film that they like to hammer that curl. They hit you with a stop and go. And, that's not on you. That's on us. We're not in those meetings, right? So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's just, I always try to remove the emotions. And when we're watching the tape, when we're doing chalk talk, let's run it through that filter. Let's run it through the filter of, okay, we don't know exactly what the call was, but we got a pretty good idea. Now, there's sometimes it's blatantly obvious that, yeah, he just screwed the pooch there. Like you're not going to convince me that the coach has told Keyshawn Nixon, if they run an out route bot on it, when everybody else, there's nobody else deep third on that side. You're basically saying, I'm going to take a 50-50 shot, and if I guess wrong, they get 6 points. There's no coach that's going to tell him bot on that with no help over the top. It's different with the stack backer, option, or what am I trying to say here? Scenario I just laid out for you. So appreciate you, Jason. Man, I can't believe we went 1:08. I was going to go 30 minutes. Hey, the internet held up. That's positive, right? So we're good there. We're going to wrap it up there, though, guys. Thank you all so much for all the super chats. Everybody here, you're way too kind. We really, really appreciate the extra support. And also, if you want to support what we do here at PTA, the best way to do so is just join our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Again, everything's free for the show all the time. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on podcast. Just search Packer Fan Total Access on podcast. But for those who want to, hey, I want to contribute a little bit, and maybe they don't want to do it in the super chat form, you can jump over on patreon.com, and $3 get you access to everything. And we try to give you all kinds of extra content over there. I'm really trying to ramp that up. So hopefully everybody is receptive of that and everything that we're doing. It's been a lot of fun, man. Been a lot of fun. So Let's see. Let's hit one more comment. We'll wrap up. Clay, this is Packer Doug. Clay, did you do a self-scout on our 2024 or 2025 big board versus the draft? And again, versus PFF grades? That might be interesting. I've actually done it. We posted it. The draft board link chat was supposed to be just where we post the draft board link. Let's don't talk in there. I'm as guilty as anyone because I see somebody post something great and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So it's probably gotten buried, but we put the link to the 2025 draft board with the PFF grades on it. So we already did that. You guys have access to it. It's very interesting. Like I said, I was going to do a segment that, Goody's got to draft better because our first 2 picks last year, there's no nice way of saying this. As much as we like to make fun of the general manager for the Chicago Bears, Ryan Poles, and their whole staff, they kicked Goody's ass last year. Their draft class was phenomenal. It was off the charts. And they also did in free agency what we were saying we would like to do, but Goody chose not to, which is get a little bit older on the offensive line, get some veteran help out there. And they did that in free agency. It hurts me. It hurts my soul to say it. But the Bears, Ryan Poles smoked Goody's ass last year. If you see it, you got to say it. And we could do a show on it if you want, but I'll just give you kind of a quick reference what I'm talking about. We had Luther Burden in the 28th spot on our board. Matthew Golden was in the 38th spot. Okay? So if you're wondering why am I mentioning this, we drafted Matthew Golden at 23. He was 38 on our board. We reached. According to the board, again, Goody's forgotten way more about football evaluation than I'll ever know. But the reality is we had Luther Burden at 28, Matthew Golden at 38. We chose Matthew Golden over Luther Burden, and Luther Burden ended up being the better player. Now, it doesn't mean, hear me out right. It doesn't mean Matthew Golden won't be a great player. Okay, it doesn't mean that. He may have a bigger upside, and that's why the Packers went that route. Could be the case, right? Could be the case. But the RAS for Matthew Golden was through the roof, and I think Luther Burden's was in the 8s. So Matthew Golden was in the 9s, Luther Burden was in the 8s. It is what it is. But Luther Burden had a far better season than Matthew Golden. Now, immediately the conversation shifts to, well, Matt LaFleur didn't use him right. That's the biggest bunch of bull. That's the biggest bunch of BS you'll ever hear. Go watch the tape. They try to hit him on deep shots. They try to give him options underneath. Jordan Love was vocal at the end of the year saying, yeah, he's gotten way better at his route running, meaning he was running the wrong routes at the wrong levels. It doesn't mean he's going to be a bad football player, but we got to acknowledge that. You're going, well, Clayton, that's just one pick. Let's go to the second round. We had Ozzie Trapillo in the 78 spot. When we picked in the second round, Ozzie Trapillo was sitting in the 78 spot on our board. Okay. Anthony Belton was at 121. So we passed on the 78th best prospect according to our board and took the 121st best prospect. Right? We took Belton at 54. The Bears took Trapillo at 56. Trapillo ended up being the better football player. Right? It is what it is. Now, going back to the draft, you can go back and watch our live draft coverage. We are actually live in Green Bay, Wisconsin for the draft doing that show. And you can go back and watch my reaction. Jacob, looking at our board on the Anthony Belton pick, you can watch Jacob's live reaction on the draft. He hated the pick. He was like, what are we doing? Why did we, and what did I do? Like I always do, I immediately said, Jacob, Goody knows how to evaluate offensive linemen. He found Zach Tom, right? He helped find Elton Jenkins. And Elton Jenkins was great this day, right? He helped find Rasheed Walker, who was a 7th round pick, who started at left tackle for us, right? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like my board is better than Goody's board. Although, off a 1-year saturation, and things could change, just like Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, 1-year saturation, Ozzie Trapillo was the better player, and our board held true. So, it is what it is. Sucks, but hate to end it on a negative note, but those are the things we're talking about, right? And again, if you see it, you got to say it. It's very, very important. So that's it, guys. We're out of here. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Greatly appreciate it. If you would do me a big favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of the future live streams. We may go live again this afternoon if news breaks. Got obviously early Valentine's Day dinner tonight, so no show tonight. I want to get back with the guys soon, not for Valentine's Day, but to do a live show in our normal whatever it is, 6 p.m. Central window or 5 p.m. Central window in the evening. We get the majority of our regulars in there. I want to get back to that soon. So we'll see if we can do that for sure. So, with all that being said, though, thank y'all so much. Again, thank you for all the super chats. Y'all are very, very kind. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Everybody in here, Pack Attack, Jason Y, H.E. Solder, Joe Trev, Thomas Ott, Joe Trev again, Jason Y again. Greatly, greatly appreciate the support. Check us out on patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Everybody stop what you're doing. Wherever you get your podcast, go search Packer Fan Total Access and give us a sub there. And make sure you go ahead and rate us on that as well. You can find it everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, every platform it should be out there. So y'all have a great day. My name is Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
Here we go.
Bye, guys.